Today, I've got someone who I think has a cool story to tell, a fellow podcaster, a fellow lover of basketball. I'm joined by Tate Unruh. Tate, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
I know you do a lot of really cool things, and I don't want to do your story an injustice by trying to explain it all. So I want you to explain to the listeners everything you're working on, and we're going to get into all of it. Just give them a quick synopsis of what you're working on.
Yeah, love it, man. So what I'm most excited about working on right now is a firm that a good buddy of mine we started called the Freedom Lab. It's a place that we would hope to help people move from fear to freedom through a process of discovering their true identity and learning to live from it. So, what does that look like? It's a process we have both walked through, and man, it's been cool. The Lord has really blessed it to start. I just breathed on it in a cool way. So it's not what Cam, my co-founder, and I, it's not what we do full time right now, but it's as far as time allotment, it's probably definitely qualifies. um, so as you know, man, like getting stuff like that off the ground, like if there's stuff to be done, then it's like, well, we need to do it. So it's
Mm.
been really cool. We're probably 3 or 4 months in. Um, and yeah, man, just watching some of the people we've worked with. One of the things we say is, what's our metric for success? Well, our metric for success at the Freedom Lab is our lives around us being transformed. Not money in the bank, not how many clients do we have, not how successful are they after they meet with us. It's just our lives around us being transformed. And that's wives, friends, clients, and that's been really fun and cool. Coming from a sports background that we can get into, like everything's just measured, man. Like efficiencies and volume, and in the business world too, like what how are you performing and how is your value tied to that? It's like no. That's been a very refreshing shift. So long-winded answer to your initial question, but that's kind of a 30,000 foot view.
And if you're listening, check out their stuff. It's the Freedom Lab. They have a podcast channel, Apple, Spotify. They're on LinkedIn. They're on social medias. Check them out. It's really good. I really like what you guys are doing, and I'm excited to have you on and discuss a lot of different things. But my audience started out as high school basketball. So we have coaches and dads who have high school athletes that listen. And I want to start with your basketball story first.
Yeah.
People, you need to be impressed with this guy. This guy did a little something in high school and college and a little after. So, Tate, I know you're not going to brag on yourself, but I'll brag for you. But give us a little highlight of where you went to high school, college, and after.
Yeah, man. I played here in the Midwest in high school. Grew up in Branson, Missouri. I was a Branson Pirate for any Missourians who know Branson basketball. Um, my college career was at Northern Colorado, so that's Big Sky country. I wanted to play Division One. I had two offers that were Division One offers out of high school. It was Northern Colorado or Toledo. And for me, like those were the only two that I really was excited about. So went to Northern Colorado, redshirted. Man, I grew like 3 or 4 inches in college. So like my game transformed. I was a late bloomer, so just kind of ended up fully developing, just my body fully developed when I was 19, 20. Then my game changed, and kind of came with that. So I just got more athletic. My um both sides of the ball, everything changed. So man, I didn't really go to college thinking like I'm gonna play after. I want to go to the NBA or play professionally. I think I'd kind of accomplished my goal in terms of playing Division One, and then I had a really good junior year. I had a good senior year, and 6 years later, I got done playing overseas. So that was like icing on the cake for me, getting paid money to do what I would love to do anyway. I saw a Scotty Scheffler quote the other day. I don't know if you're a golf guy, but he was somebody asked him about all the money he's made. And, the money that I made pales in comparison to the money that Scotty Scheffler has made. But he was like, man, I don't, it's an icing on the cake thing. Like, I loved playing high school golf. I loved competing on the golf course. I still love doing that. The money, it's nice to have, but it's not why I do it. And I kind of felt the same way. It was like, man, I love what I do. Um, so yeah, man, it's funny how people will ask me that, and for a long time, like I could easily play kind of the humility card and talk about my basketball career, and know, like your words, not mine. I would know, like, yeah, this is an impressive basketball career. Most high school players don't play in college, and most college players don't get to keep playing. So I know deep down, like that's a great thing. It's an impressive thing. What's been cool and in my transformation recently has been like, yeah, I can talk about all that stuff and it doesn't change who I am. So I
Hmm.
think previously it came from a place of self promotion. And now it's just like, yeah, these are the facts. Whether you're impressed by them or not, or your listeners are impressed by them or not, it doesn't change who I am. And that's freeing, man. Like that's been really fun. So yeah.
Yeah. So my co-host and I on our weekly show, we do this Christian leadership podcast, and that's one of the two series I do. And he played college basketball at Wheaton at a pretty high level, and I coached at a pretty high level and had success in it. But it wasn't those things that we left with. We left with a bunch of lessons and a bunch of stories from our athletic career, because sports breeds organization, motivation, work ethic, all these things that really teaches you something for life. And I tell a lot of the kids I work with to this day, you have an expiration date in your sport. So what are you doing to prepare yourself for life after that sport? Which is what you're doing right now. I did look up your stats, Tate. You were a solid player. You had your sophomore through senior year, you're about 13 points a game. And the headline I read was 42% 3-point percentage, 21st in the nation. I mean, come on. I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah.
So was that natural for you, or did you have to work incredibly hard to get to that point?
Oh man, I would say I'd lean more on the hard work side of that spectrum. Shooting by itself, just like catching and shooting, I was always a pretty good shooter. But man, like as you know, shooters are a dime a dozen. Like there's a lot of people, even now, like I'll play in a men's league or something, and like there's some dudes who never played in college, but these guys can shoot, man. Like shooting is an art and it's a skill. And I think I was always good at it. But man, I remember getting to college and thinking I got recruited as a shooter and kind of a scorer. And I remember getting there and being like, all these guys can shoot
Mm,
really good. I'm no longer the best shooter. So that's when it was like, okay, time to work.
yeah.
Um, and I didn't, I mean, I worked hard in high school, very hard, harder than most of my peers. Um, but I remember getting to the next level and being like, I don't know how to work hard.
Mm,
Um, and probably the same thing when I went overseas. So at that point, it was more about, man, it's hard. Like there were some things that it was like, okay, I want to be good at everything, right? As a basketball player, and in any area, you want to be good at everything. But I think I got some peace of mind knowing, like, okay, I'm not gonna be Chris Paul, and I'm not gonna be Paul George, right? Like this isn't my game. So I think after my sophomore year, I had a decent year. We weren't very good, but I had a good year. And I remember like sitting down with a couple coaches and we were just kind of telling the truth. And they were like, look, dude, I see a really high ceiling for you. It's not trying to be somebody that you're not. So who are you? You can shoot the heck out of it. Let's hone that in. Like let's get you into a place where you feel really comfortable in who you are. And it's funny, man, now that we're going through this stuff with the Freedom Lab, like I've thought back about that conversation and it was all about basketball, right? Like it was all about what are your measurements and your skill sets and how can we fit you into our offensive scheme, right? It was 100% a basketball conversation. What kind of player are you, not who you are.
mm,
But it's kind of been cool just to see God's like roadmap for my life. And I remember that conversation vividly. And now getting to walk through like, who am I as a person? What do I want to build? Who do I want to do it with? Like, there's been a little bit of like a deja vu going, yeah, let's tell the truth. What am I good at? Who am I?
Hmm.
And what does that mean for the trajectory of my life? I've kind of done this as a basketball player, and not to say like, yeah, it worked out. Like that it's just a moment of like telling the truth and making some intentional decisions
Yeah,
around the person, the player that you are.
right,
So, yeah, it's
right.
cool.
So I was watching the Masters, and we do film these in advance, so someone that's listening may go, "That was weeks ago." I was watching the Masters, and I put this question on X, and it was, which athlete's yips, quote unquote, is the worst: a golfer, a basketball shooter, or a baseball pitcher? And people gravitated towards the golfer first, but a basketball shooter, man, the yips are real. Like, if it is such a mental mind game. Oh, your mentals can really play with you. And you miss a couple shots, someone on the other team starts heckling you. Coach starts looking at you concerned, like, now, oh my gosh, I'm struggling here. And what's really interesting is you took that thought process as an athlete, because you were a shooter, and now you're doing kind of a motivational teaching on how to get rid of that fear, that angst. Do you sense a seed that was planted in you as a young one trying to figure out how to get past the yips of shooting into this now, or have you connected that at all?
Oh, so 100%, bro. Yeah, that was one of the first dots I connected. And the way I say it is, this invitation that I feel like I've gotten from the Lord with the Freedom Lab, and all the cool things that have happened with helping some people move from fear to freedom. Man, my favorite, just personally, my favorite arena that he's kind of invited me back into is that high level basketball player arena. Because man, when we first started doing this, and when I was kind of transformed just mentally, oh, I couldn't help but think like, oh my gosh, how many teammates do I know who are either still playing or that I've played with where we were just mentally wrecked because
Mm-hmm.
coach said this or dad said that, or the list goes on and on and on. And man, every shooter goes through a slump. Um, I'd probably venture to say I'm not as good as a golfer as I am a shooter, but as a average golfer, I would say every golfer goes through it, right? Like this is stuff that people aren't numb to. This is going to happen. Um, humbly as a man, yeah, I was probably a top 20, top 10 3-point shooter in the country. And I was going through routine slumps annually. So you can't avoid them, but you can handle them way better than some people can, right? So if everyone's
Mm-hmm.
going to go through them, well, how can I ensure that I'm going to handle them really well? So if we're talking about basketball specifically, oh man, the amount of times that I did something out of fear. Specifically for me, it was honestly, it fell in line with like your first question, talking about hard work. I worked my tail off in college, and thinking back, just like logistically. So we had a practice gym that was separate from our arena that we played in. And when I got there, we had our little like student ID card that got us in the gym and the locker room and anywhere you needed to go, dorms, all that stuff. And they had this system where you would swipe your card, the door would unlock, and the coaches would get a report of who's swiping and when. So as soon as I found that out, I was like, oh, I'm going every night, or I'm gonna go super late, or I'm just gonna go all the time, so that they see I'm in the gym. I'm working my tail off, and I was. It wasn't fake work. Like I was up there 11 to 1 a.m. sweating some nights, and that was real. But what was the motivation? It was to impress the coaches so that I could play, so that I could impress my parents and my friends back home, so that like it was all out of fear so that people would
Mm-hmm.
approve of me. And now I know like I had no idea who I was. I was doing all of this from a place of fear. But thinking back to like 19-year-old Tate, man, if I would have been able to cope with a shooting slump or even like a verbal a verbally like abusive conversation. Not that I was verbally abused, but like
Hmm.
college basketball is serious and coaches are very serious sometimes. So there's a lot of conversations that you're engaging with your coach where it's like, "Hey dude, pick it up." Um and on the tail end of those conversations, now this mental health stuff, it's like a buzzword, right? Like everybody's
Yeah.
talking about it. And I think in a good way, right? It
Mhm.
mental health, everybody would say healthy mentally. Yeah, we like that. If you're doing things to stay healthy mentally, that's a good thing. And I agree, right? I'm in the space now, right? The freedom, like this is part of this is part of it. But one of the things that kind of it doesn't rub me the wrong way. Um, One of the things I just wonder is, okay, let's just say 10 players walk away from a hard conversation with coach where they're discouraged, coach is hard on them, whatever. And there's 10 different responses mentally from those guys. One of them is, man, screw him. I'm done with this. I'm a transfer, whatever. And the other end of the spectrum is, I'm going to accept responsibility. He's right. Right. And then you have all the middle ground, right? Where it's like, well, I don't think he's right, but like I want to please him. I want to play, whatever your mental state is. Golly, dude, if I would have had a process to walk through during those years, and even in my years of the pro, I know I would have been playing so much more at peace. I would have been playing freer. And I
Hmm.
think as athletes and coaches, like we would all agree, when you play free, you play your best. And when you play free, you have the most fun. So if I would have had a process to get back to freedom in the heat of the battle, in real time, in the middle of a practice or the middle of a game, and know, like, yeah, he's yelling at me, but it says nothing about who I am or the player that I am. I just made a mistake. I'm back to freedom. And then it's like, yeah, go have fun, go play, enjoy. That would have been wildly helpful.
Dude, I relate to a lot of what you just said. As a high schooler, I was good at basketball. I wasn't great. However, I had a coach that was very stringent about shots being taken. And if you play for a coach like that, it's very hard if if you get into a mental pretzel because if you're already worried about missing shots and what's dad gonna say, what are the fans gonna say, and now you're worried about getting taken out of the game or whatever, it's really, really difficult. I struggled so badly with the fear of making mistakes when I played. I never played at 100% in high school, ever. And then now moving on to as a coach, I don't think people realize how much coaches coach out of fear as well. I mean, you could take it at the micro level in game situations. You're up, late in the game and you're just passing the ball around because you're scared you're going to lose. What do they say? Play to win, not to lose, right? But there's so much fear in that. But also, I found myself after the most successful years of my career more angsty than ever because I had a fear of having to repeat that. What are people going to say if I'm actually not good enough? And I was constantly thinking about what are people going to say every time I lost? And I couldn't operate under that umbrella, under that cloud forever. So through the Lord, I made the decision to step out of it because it wasn't mentally healthy, and I think He had bigger plans for me in going down in this area. However,
Mm.
I wish I would have been able to be much more at peace because I'm doing these coach Bible studies now at this high school near me. There's really successful coaches. Almost every single one of them has a state title or state appearance in their sports. And every one of them tells me just how free from fear they are and how relaxing that is, where they know it's the process, it's the kids. You can control the controllables and the rest falls into place. And I was like, I'm so jealous of you guys because I wish I could go back and coach that way again. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, totally, man. And I don't know how old these guys are, but answer me this: like some of the people who are, let's just say, 60 plus in my life, they live with a freedom that is different because it's almost like the comment. I don't know. I could hear a 60-year-old making a comment that's like, "Hey, I'm old enough to say my candid thoughts. Here they are," and it's yeah, yeah, I love that. But as a high school, college, young adult, it's like, man, how can I paint the prettiest picture for a coach or mom or dad or spouse, whoever else, to like me?
Yep.
And when you live 60 years on this earth, I think you finally get to a point where you're like, I know who I am and I'm not changing. And I mean, some people probably, and that's not to say like all elderly people have no work to do. Like that, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you get to a point where you're like, this is who I am. And
Yep.
if you don't do any work to get there, then I would say most people don't get there until they're a lot older. So,
Yep.
oh my gosh, how awesome would it be if we could help people get there as a 14-year-old where they know, I know who I am. And no matter what coach or dad says, even though I love dad and I like
Mhm.
coach, like these are great people, great men in my life, whatever that looks like, I'm still going to be who I am when this game is over,
Yep.
regardless of if I go 5 for 9 from three or 1 for 9. And
Yep.
that would be, oh man, just thinking back to high school Tate, I would have a terrible couple of days at school after a game that I went 1 for 9. I'd be like, who am I? Like I'm not valuable. Well,
Mm.
what am I here for if I can't even make more than 1 3 out of 9, right?
Right.
And then you have a great game and it's like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm feeling good. It's like that's gonna be like a roller coaster your whole life.
Yeah.
So thinking back on just performance, that's really the word for me. Like my value to I don't know if I would have said it like this, but it's how I was operating. My value to me was based on my performance. And when it was good, I was valuable. And when it was bad, mentally I was a wreck. And so that's been our heart, man, is like helping people have a process that gets them back to freedom, regardless of performance. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, being in the sports world and out of it, like we measure everything.
Yep.
Entrepreneurs, they measure everything. Companies, they measure everything. And the marketplace tells you your value is based on these metrics. It's like, no, I'm valuable, period. And yeah, those metrics are great. I want to have success and I want to perform well, but that doesn't tell me anything about my value. Yeah, it's interesting.
I I used to tell people when they'd ask me about coaching and they'd say, "What's it like?" Well, I'd say, "Well, it's interesting. There's not many jobs where grown people are allowed to just boo you. That's a weird thing."
So
And then
true.
the other interesting thing is, there's also not many jobs where you lost. Like I could go home from my business job and go, "It didn't go well, but." Silver lining. In sports, the score says you lost. It's really hard to separate your worth and your value from that loss. I mentioned, I'm just so jealous of coaches that were able to separate those two. I couldn't compartmentalize. That's all I thought about. It was all encompassing. And um, luckily, I was able to process that healthily, and I didn't put it on my athletes. I'd say two major things I told my team, Tate, was number one, you're playing a game as kids. If it was a timeout and it was really tough, and
Mm,
you could tell they were antsy, I'd call a timeout, and I'd say, I want you to look around. You are kids playing a game. That's how I want you to perceive this moment right now. Is you're getting to have fun with your best friends playing a game that you love. So stop being so anxious. And then the second thing was when it gets around playoff time and everyone's kind of rattled and trying to force things. And I would say, you guys, if you're on the court, you're there for a reason. You didn't walk into it. You didn't luck into it. You're there because you worked really hard. You put in the time. You put in the hours. And because of that, you're playing in a playoff game. And being able to express that to a team, I think was really really helpful for me. One last question for you, Takes. I'm talking about coaching here. Was there anything a coach did that left a mark on you?
ooh, just mark in general, like good mark, bad mark.
Good, 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 good.
Okay. Yeah, man. One of my favorite, so my dad coached me growing up, and that was always an interesting relationship just because, it's like, what hat are you wearing? Are you dad or are you coach right now? And so navigating that was hard and beautiful and all the things. Man, one of my favorite coaches ever was a guy who coached one of our teams overseas, and he he came in mid-season and our team was kind of in turmoil. We had high expectations. We weren't meeting them. They had put together this roster that was just like very really underperforming. Um, and so, a lot of guys are kind of going, my agent's saying this, I'm about to bounce. Like it is, coaches talk about like the hand wide open and the hand together and how the teams who make a fist are like together. We were so not together. Like we were separated. Everyone was kind of clicky. Um, he came in, and I will remember this meeting for the rest of my life, I hope. And he was so authentic, um, and so calm in a way that I just never seen. Like I'd had a lot of coaches who were like, "Hey, here's the rules. You don't follow them, here's the door." And that's authentic, right? Like some of those guys, they were men's men, and probably what you think of when you think of like a high level basketball coach. It's like, hey, when he says this is the rule, like this is the rule. Like you don't mess with coach. And you know, I was 28 at this time. And I thought like maybe I'd want to coach one day. I'd run some camps and like done some stuff with kids. So like I'm always analyzing this stuff as a maybe a future coach. I loved analyzing coaching and still do. And he came in and was just himself. And himself was not big and emotional and like my way or the highway in a way that you would think. It was my way or the highway. At the end of the meeting, I remember him being like, "Look, my goal of this meeting was to connect us." And he never spoke with a tone that was like that was more than what I'm speaking with right now. He just
Mm.
connected the room in a way that yelling and screaming could have never done.
Wow.
And I left that meeting going, man, that dude brought his identity into this locker room, connected us, left, and he took his identity with him. And so
Mm.
oh my gosh, man, that's a dangerous coach. Like and a dangerous team. Think about all of us. If we're operating within our own identity, going, okay, hey, you're not connected to the group. Would you like to be connected to the group? No? Okay, there's the door. Candidly, great. You can
Right.
leave. If you'd like to be connected, we see you as what uh, whatever his identity is, right? A protector of the innocent. Let's just say he's a
Mm.
protector of the innocent. It's like, okay, you're going to go to battle for somebody who's getting ripped off and is innocently working their tail. Like, we have a spot for you. Come be yourself on this team. And he just went down the line. And I remember talking to him before the meeting. This is sorry, another long-winded answer, bro.
It's
We can move
okay.
on. I remember talking to him before the meeting. I had met him before. His wife is a world famous tennis player. Like he was a big deal. This is in Belgium when I was playing in Belgium, and he'd won a lot in this league. People knew who he was. Um, so I remember talking to him before the meeting, and I was kind of one of the leaders on the team, and he came into town, and he was like, "Oh, let's meet." And I was like, "Okay, what's the plan?" And he was like, "I'm going to go down the line." And so I remember walking into the meeting going, "Oh, he's going to go down the line and saying, 'You're not doing this, you suck. You're not doing that. Your attitude's terrible.' All this stuff." And he went down the line calmly and said, "Who are you? What kind of player are you? No, no, no. I disagree. Let's tell the truth. Let's get it all out there in front of the team. We need to be connected. They need to know
Mm.
who you are too. Yes, that's who you are. Okay. Now, how does that fit into our team? We'll do that next. Who are you?" Down the line.
Mm.
And I remember going, we left that meeting. It took 2 hours, but we left that meeting going, we're going to
Wow.
have some fun and win some
Yeah.
games. So, yeah, he was just himself. Like, that's the short answer to your question. What he did to impact me, he was just himself. And for the rest of the year, he was himself, and it had a huge impact on me.
Amazing. I was at the Global Leadership Summit in Chicago this past summer, and Coach K was there speaking at it. And he said something very interesting, Tate. He goes, most coaches say, leave your ego at the door. I told my team, bring your egos into the locker room and let's figure out how to make them work together. Now, at first, I was like, huh? Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, because the problem is whenever you leave your ego at the door, what happens when you leave practice? You go back to your ego. But if you can morph your ego into a team unit. Now it's stuck there, whether you leave or come back. And I thought, man, that's why you have won so many games and I have not. And I mean, it's just really genius. And I want to shift to the Freedom Lab. You've mentioned we a lot. So your partner, Cam Michael, how did you meet and maybe boost his ego? What do you like about working with him?
Yeah, he's the best, man. He's one of my best buds. We met. He was playing at Air Force. I was playing at Northern Colorado, and he transferred in. Um, Back then, when you transferred, you had to sit out. It wasn't it wasn't the Wild West like it is now. So he transferred in, and man, we had a very similar game. He's 6'5", shooter, scorer, really smart. And so we just kind of gravitated towards each other on and off the court. I think they kind of brought him in and they were like, it was my senior year. And they were like, hey, we want you to be Tate when Tate leaves. Um, Cam was exponentially better at a lot of things on the court than I was, and he'll get to share some of his story that all his career ending like kind of like that. But man, his true gift is his words. Like he has weight with his voice. I'm excited for your listeners to kind of hear whatever he has to say because his words have impacted me probably more than, I mean, your question was what coach has impacted you, but that dude has impacted me just with
Mm,
his words probably as much as anyone in my life. And nothing profound, like it's just who he is.
yeah.
He's just somebody when he's in the room, you're kind of like, I want to be around him. Who is that?
Mm.
Why is he so magnetic? And I've found that his words are what it is for me. So yeah, he's the best.
That's pretty cool. I know a good partner makes everything better. I know my partner Johnny and I we're very different, but we have the same, calling and life goals, and our families love each other. And having someone that you trust, but also have fun with, is so important to this whole entire process. If you can't like pour out your vulnerabilities to who you're with, it's just not going to work, man. Well, I want you to give me the Freedom Lab elevator pitch. So you're on an elevator with someone for 20 seconds. What are you telling them about the Freedom Lab?
Yeah, it's a consulting firm that helps people move from fear to freedom. And how does that happen? Well, it's through the process of discovering your true identity. So you might have a couple different titles that you have: dad, podcast host, um, coach, player, entrepreneur, right? These are all titles that we all behold. And a lot of times nowadays you say, well, who are you? What do you do? And people respond with their job title. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's not who you are. There's millions of dads who, the Lord says he knows the hairs on our head. Think about, do you have kids?
Yes, two
Think
boys.
think about if I asked you, tell me about your boys, and you said, well, they're, well, tell me about your oldest. And he's like, well, he's my son. I'd be like, okay, tell me about him. Well, he likes to play with cars. Okay, tell me about it. Now
Mm,
you like sports a little bit. Okay, no. Like, who is he? The hairs on his head. And that's who we are. That's who
mm,
we've been made to be. So I would say, man, personally, like I was somebody who was like, yeah, I'm a pro basketball player. That's who I am.
yeah.
Who are you? And it's like, no, that's not who you are. That's what you do. So helping people realize who they are, and then that's kind of like the transformational moment that we've seen people have. It's so cool. And then learning to live from that. So fear doesn't go away. I'm
Hmm.
still afraid. My quiet time that I have most days right now, man, is writing down what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the stuff that I was afraid of 2 and 5 and 10 years ago. Gaining
Yeah.
people's approval, making enough money, all the things. But it's the layering of those fears that we've been able to work through and help people work through. So that's a long elevator pitch, but I got going. You get
Maybe
the
you got
gist.
stuck a couple times.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe a
yeah. It
few
was
families
way
going to the
high.
pool came in with their tubes and all that stuff, and you got a long ride to the top floor.
Way up top.
So I listen to Patrick Lencioni sometimes. He's a big leadership guy, working
Hmm.
genius, and his podcast that just started his new series was on leading with fear. Um, or passion or joy. So he found that he was leading with fear, the fear of not being relevant, the fear of not being good enough, instead of leading with just a passion for what you're doing. And I found myself really reflecting on that, Tate, because I really do struggle with someone who is fearful. So when I was 28 years old, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and a clinical depression. So it, I was like, man, how can I be depressed? I have the Lord and I have the successful career. I don't quite understand how someone like me could get there. I think the moral of the story is we're all susceptible to spiritual warfare, to the negative voices in your head saying you're not good enough. How do you help those people get out of that rut? It's like, what are some things you and Cam do when you talk to people to get them to conceptualize, to realize the fact that fear in itself is a lie from the devil, the master of lies, right?
Yeah, so good, man. And I would echo what you just said. One of the things that we tell people a lot is you can identify with whatever group you want to identify with. You can be the dad group, Christian group, Muslim, Republican, Democrat, whatever group you want to be a part of. There's one thing that's universal, and that is that you have a fear of something. Everybody has at least a fear of something, right? And what we've found and what we've seen is that that fear, if we ask people, what are you afraid of? It's like opening up a door. And it's like, okay, I'm afraid I won't have enough money in my bank account. Okay. Well, usually there's another door. If you don't have enough money in your bank account, what does that mean? Well, that I won't be able to buy groceries for my kids. Okay. So you're afraid that your kids won't have food. Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't be? Right. Okay. If your kids don't have food, then what happens? Well, if I can't give them food, my wife and my kids are going to leave. Okay, so you're afraid of being alone. Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't be? Right. So this is an example of like layering through your fears to get to what are you most afraid of? So to answer your question, this is kind of the process that we help people get to telling the truth, the whole truth. And it's not always easy. Like sometimes it's a conversation like that where we're kind of guiding them into door number 4, door number 5, into telling the full truth. So for me, and honestly, for a few other people that we've worked with, it was I have a deep fear of failing and being exposed. Um, and that was like, that was, I don't know, it probably took me 2 weeks to get there. It's like, man,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just don't want to be exposed. Okay, exposed for what? Well, I know everything that I've done, all the good and all the bad. And if it's public, I either want it to be public or I can spin it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Into a humble or like in the way that I want it to be seen as. If it's private, I can either make it public the way that I want or keep it private, right? So if all of that is gone and everything's exposed, what does that say about me? It says, man, all of your good and your junk is about to be public with no governor on it. How do you feel about that? I'm like, ooh, don't love that. Why? Well, because I have all these failures over here, all these things that I've done that I don't want people to know. I don't want them to know because if I did these things, I'm bad. There's the lie. So
Yeah.
that's step 2. It's like getting to a lie that you have agreed with about yourself. And I had agreed that, man, I am a failure,
Mm-hmm.
disappointment, not worthy of being loved because I've done X, Y, and Z. And so if I believe that I'm not worthy of this love, they're going to believe the same thing. I'll be powerless, I'll be alone, I'll be a failure. Like all this is going to happen if I'm exposed.
Yeah.
And it's a lie, right? Those things are a lie. That's not who I am. Those are the things that I've done. There may be mistakes that I've made or things that I've accomplished, but it's not who I am. So, helping people tell the truth about what they're most afraid of,
Mm-hmm.
and then identifying the lie that they believe, that they've agreed with about themselves. I am a failure. An I am
Mm-hmm.
statement is what you'll hear some people say. Like, make an I am statement about that. And then
Yeah.
like some of our workshops, we'll just go around the room and do it quick. Like, okay, Hunter, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid I won't have enough money in my account. Okay. What's the lie that you would believe if you had enough money? Oh, I'm a failure. Okay, next, Tate. What are you afraid of? Right, and just get people to say it. Like, just get
Yeah.
people to say it so that it's like, okay, great. There's a
Right.
lie that you agree with, and it's a lie. It's not true, right? So that's once we're able to identify the lie, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a lie. I'm not a failure. Okay. Well, the obvious next question is, who are you? And that's
Yeah.
when we get to like the depths of like, who did God create you to be?
Yeah.
And you're a Jesus guy, I'm a Jesus guy. Like, that's when it gets really fun, candidly, because we'll have conversations that are like, hey, look, we can help you find out who you are, and this might help your team and your culture at your company, or this might help you guys become more connected as a basketball team, and that's all great. But if you want to do what we're doing, you have to be a part of the kingdom. You can't just try to build your little empire. So if you want to talk about being a part of the kingdom, that's kind of the next step. And people are like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to be a part of the kingdom. And it's like, okay, it's
Right.
amazing.
Right. Well, it's like what Paul says in Timothy, right? I did not give you the spirit of fear and timidity. That cloud of fear is not from God. It's a result of the human condition, which is sin. So that's
Mm,
something that if we direct ourselves to God and get closer to God, we can start eliminating that fear. We can't eliminate it altogether because we live in a sinful world and there is spiritual warfare and that exists. However, we can cling to what the Lord says, and people like you and Cam, and if you have a passion for teaching that and instilling that in young people, I think that's amazing. What an amazing calling. I'm joined by Tate Unruh here. He's working with the Freedom Lab with his partner Cam Michael. They do catalyst workshops, freedom coaching, fearless boot camps. They have a podcast, and I just love what you're doing because we're in a society right now where we are open discussing it. However, there men, athletes still have trouble with it. I mean, I'm just thinking of this news story from yesterday. There's this receiver for LSU that's going to get drafted who commits suicide yesterday
hmm
because of I think what I was reading, and I don't want to misspeak, but it was like the fear of underachieving. He had so much pressure. He couldn't live up to the standards. He was getting called out on a few things, and it took a young man's life. So this is important stuff we're talking about. Now, it might be something as small as I can't focus during a game because I'm so unconfident I can't get my shot. That is a fear to work on. But then there's a fear of, am I good enough as a human being? And that's something that we need everyone to understand because that's going to be Satan's way of distracting you from the kingdom by telling you that you're not good enough for this cause. I want to ask you real quick. You do have a podcast with Cam. What is your vision for that podcast? Are you hoping to just kind of relay this material to people, or do you focus on something else?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. The firm, some of the workshops and cohorts that we do with, you know, people through that is more like a highway. And we're humming, we're going deep, we're going fast. Um, it's very intentional, it's very personalized, and we're going through their specific life and behavior and performance and identity, right? To help them you know, do this right and get to a place where they're like, okay, freedom. I'm experiencing freedom. The podcast is more like an on-ramp to the highway. It's a casual conversation around all of these things: fear, freedom, identity, and you know, being a podcast, the nature of that, like, we're not going to go through every listener and get intentional and specific, but we're going to tell the same stories, and we're going to help relay some of the same themes and things that we're going through in these workshops and on these cohorts that are happening in real time. So I was telling a buddy, I was meeting with him on some of this stuff the other day, and I told him, like, look, he's kind of he's like halfway in on some of this stuff, and he made a comment the other day. He was like, I don't know, man, I don't know if fear is everything. And I was like, yeah, I had kind of had that inclination. I was like, yeah, I know that you think that, and that's fine. Um, and he's kind of trying to debate on, I mean, candidly, I think he's trying to figure out, should I spend money to have my team go through this?
Mm,
And I'm sitting there going, well, the fact that you're the fact that you're kind of mulling that over, what would keep you from not doing it? And he was like, well, fear. I was like, okay, good. Keep going. Fear of what? Fear of wasting money and maybe your team doesn't experience any freedom. Yeah, okay. What would that say? Well, it would say that we know this process you guys have doesn't work, and we spent money we could have spent elsewhere. Okay, so you don't have enough money, and he's a believer, and he would subscribe to the belief that we do have enough. We all have enough. We all have enough. We're not in control, right? This is the way which a lot of Christians say they view the world. But I kind of challenged him on it, and I was like, you can say you think you have enough, but if you think you could waste money on something like this, or something that would potentially better your team, then I hear we won't have enough. And that's maybe something for you to chew on. So that's
Mhm.
a little small example of how even in fear, like even in analyzing fear, I think the evil one has a way of being like, this isn't as important as you think. And
Yep.
I have found, like, man, Hunter, candidly, like, I cannot have a conversation anymore with somebody and not hear the fear in their voice.
Mhm.
And how does it come up? They either promote themselves or they protect themselves. Why would you do those things if you don't
Mhm.
have a fear of what this person thinks, or any fear at all? You wouldn't.
You know what's funny is if you listen to their podcast or even just stumble on their social media and you can see clips from it, the one word I would use to describe, in my opinion, is vulnerable. I think Cam and Tate get very vulnerable. And in light of that, I'll be vulnerable with you on here. I struggle with the fear in doing this podcast, and that am I good? Is it good enough? When I have a guest, and this is guest based, I've had some really cool guests. Can I tell you what I think about 10 minutes before each one joins? What if this episode bombs and they wasted their time?
Mhm.
Every single time. I've not gone into one podcast, and I've been doing this for a while, that I have not thought to myself, what if I wasted their time? And I wish I could get free of that fear of, am I good enough? Me and my partner talk about this all the time. Like, what if we're not good enough? What And that's, I think, the enemy trying to plant seeds of doubt so we don't keep pursuing this to the best of our ability and hopefully grow the kingdom. Because I'll have times where this is tough to do, put yourself out there, and you're kind of, show, here's my blood, watch me bleed, type deal. And it's really hard to do that without the fear of not being adequate. It's like the old Coach Carter movie. Do you remember Coach Carter? It's a Samuel L. Jackson. He asked the kids what their biggest fear is, and he said, "Your biggest fear is not being inadequate. Your biggest fear is that you are adequate, because that means you have to do something with it." Like, what a powerful way to kind of explain that to kids and even athletes. We are kind of running it towards the end here. There's two things I have left for you. Number one, can you just give us, like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes on your faith background? Like, where did you grow your faith? Where did you stumble into the Lord? That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, before I move on, man, I would
Yeah.
say hearing you say that, just like the vulnerability of that comment, you're tracking. Like, that's it, right? That is it. And so what does that look like for me? Okay, there's two ways I could view coming on to this podcast, right, as your guest. One of them could be a production performance type viewpoint. What am I going to get out of this? Um, and what is that like? It's like, okay, well, is this going to help us grow our channel? Is this going to be worth my time? Is our conversation going to be fruitful for Hunter or fruitful for me? Like, what are we going to get out of it? Right? That's one way to view it. And if I view it that way, then we run the risk of this being a waste of my time, right?
Yep.
If I view it the other way, which is I know now. I know that I am a bridge builder. That's who I am. Regardless of what I do and what title I hold, I'm a bridge builder. So if I can come on this podcast and know, what am I going to do for the next hour? I'm going to build bridges. And the way I see that happening right now, what's a bridge? A bridge is it's a connector between 2 points that would never be connected otherwise. So if there's
Mhm.
one person, even if it's one person who listens to your podcast regularly who goes, oh man, I'm making all these decisions out of fear. I built that bridge.
Mm,
And not that this is about how many bridges can I build on this episode. It's more about like I know who I am. So I'm going to be building bridges all day. Whether I'm talking to you on this podcast or doing a handyman project at home, like I'm going to build bridges. That's who I am. So that if anything it's an encouragement to people to, man,
yeah.
I can't be a disappointment on here for you and you can't be a disappointment on here for me because I'm building bridges regardless. So love that. Um Thanks for getting vulnerable, dude. It's the best. It truly is the
It
best.
it is, and I'll tell you this real quick before you go on. I've had people come on before and tell me, Hunter, if one person listens, they kind of say the same thing as you. And I'm a competitive maniac. I would watch 40 hours of film before games, and I'd be like, no, it's not good enough. And I got it, and I'm still working with my wife on that being a lie to not tell myself. And I've told her at dinner last week that it's like, Natalie, I feel like the Lord is saying, Hunter, this is what I made you for. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, and this is what I'm making you for, and this is your purpose.
Mm,
But what if I come up short? Um, that's something you can probably hear it in my voice. Like I'm still wrestling with,
totally. Yeah,
I'm
so
still
good.
wrestling. Like, and I've had some amazing guests, and it's been a really fun blessing to have to do with my friend and that sort of thing. But I'm still wrestling with purpose and um being good enough, and what does that even mean? So I mean, you could probably diagnose me. I can come on your podcast and you can probably help me process all that. I think that would be incredibly healthy. But I think one thing that people do tell me is they like hearing people's faith stories. So it doesn't have to be this long-winded
Yeah.
revelation. It can just be, here's where I came into the Lord and here's what I'm learning now.
Yeah. So good, man. So I grew up in a Christian home. I asked the Lord to come into my heart when I was 5. I know there's maybe controversy around that age and that decision, but man, it's the one memory I have when I was 5. So I know something happened.
Mm,
Um, and then, growing up in a Christian home, it was a lot of right from wrong. And my parents are the best, man. Like I'm one of 6 kids. They did an amazing job. Um, but I went off to college and kind of just had an experimental phase, like a lot of us do. Um, my faith became my faith when I spent a year in a small town in Hungary playing basketball. I read the Bible cover to cover for the first time. Some of my teammates probably thought I was super weird, but I would read most of the day and cry to myself at
mm,
just the love story that I felt like I was getting hit in the face with. And um, as God would have it, met my wife the next summer. And if I'd have met her 2 years before, she probably would have seen a pompous arrogance that I definitely walked around with. But God grabbed a hold of my heart and changed my life. And then, really, if I'm honest, man, candidly, he grabbed a hold of my heart again with some of this identity stuff because from that day, I think I was 26, 25, 26 when I really like became, my faith is my faith. And I was walking with the Lord, but I was still completely operating out of fear, fear of being enough, a fear of losing all that I have. And recently, probably this year, I mean, I'm 34 years old, and this year I felt like I had a wild transformation in terms of being made aware of who I am, who he made me to be, and what that means for the rest of my life. So,
mm.
um, yeah, man, Jesus changed my life about 8 years ago and continues to change it every day. So it's the best decision I've ever made following him.
Praise the Lord. It's amazing to me how many people they go through, religion, quote unquote, throughout their whole young life without even really digging into the word. I found myself in that exact situation. And then when they finally do, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" Because we just don't do it. And then we just a light bulb comes on. It's like, Well, maybe you aren't close to the Lord. Maybe you aren't growing good fruit because you're not spending time with Him. And we have a relational God. That's what makes us different from every other religion, is that our God is relational. We can talk to Him. And if we're not spending any time with Him, we're probably not growing together, which I
Mm,
like what you said about you spent time in the Word and that grew your faith. Because when people are like, Hunter, my faith isn't growing, my first question is how much time are you spending with the Lord? Because maybe that's why, right? Like, I just
totally.
find that just super awesome that the Bible can connect us that through generations, man. And praise God for what He's doing in your life now and taking those lessons and moving it forward. So I want to end this way, Tate. It's kind of our just way of having fun and being light at the end of an episode. It's a lightning round of quick questions. All right. So it's like
Yes.
20
Sweet.
seconds or less if you really want to answer. All right.
Sweet. I'll be quick. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
long-winded on some of these, but I can rapid fire. Let's do it.
I don't mind it, man. Engaging conversation is good either way with me. I could talk to these people like you for hours, but I know for the sake of your times, I've got to keep it moving. That's one of the things I've learned the most. That's just why the first question is, what has surprised you the most about podcasting?
Ooh, good one. I would probably say the tech stuff. I'm a pretty tech guy. The tech stuff has been like, "Phew, this is gonna make me sound like I'm not smart. Figuring out the mics and the speakers and how to do stuff on a Zoom call. Like, there's a bunch of different softwares to do that with. The technology side of it, getting on with a guest and being like, okay, can you hear me? Can I hear you? Are they going to be able to hear us? Like, that's the reason we're doing this. Um, I don't have a ton of experience with that stuff, so probably that stuff.
Dude, I echo that. We talked a little bit before, but for the people
Yeah,
listening, for a mostly guest-based podcast, it is so stressful trying to make sure everyone's got what they need for the podcast. Mike's working, the timing, the story, the questions, the comfort. Some people will come on and they're not comfortable till two-thirds the way through because they haven't done anything like this before. So learning how to navigate that. For me, there's a couple things that I found super fascinating, and I'll be quick too. Number one was trying to listen what someone else is saying and think of what you're going to say next and how you're going to transition with the time is really hard.
it
That it
is.
is it is hard because then they'll finish and be like, "What'd you say?"
Yeah. Or if you have a follow-up, it's like, well, that's a great point, but we got to move on. Yeah, 100%, dude.
Yes, yes. And then the second thing is just the waves of audience is hard. So you start a podcast and all your friends and family listen and you do pretty good on numbers and you start feeling really good about yourself. But then you realize a couple months in, it's not their routine. They just didn't support you. They're not locked in. So that it goes through waves like everything else. And then when it's at a low wave, you're like, oh, I stink. It's at a high wave. You're like, this is amazing.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
So second question, MJ or LeBron?
MJ.
Pick your finals champion right now. NBA.
Oh, I'm gonna go with the Warriors because I will cheer like crazy for them. I don't know if it's a great money bet, but I'm a Steph guy, man. So I'm gonna say Dubs. Let's go Warriors.
I'm a cynic. I think Boston's winning it.
That's a good one.
You or Cam, who's the more responsible one?
I'll let Cam answer that. No, I give him a hard time because in college he was like, it was like, dude, where are your keys? Where is your phone? Like, look, come on. But he is shepherding a congregation at a large growing church. Like he's a very responsible adult. His 19-year-old, 20-year-old self, we always harped on, but probably him, honestly, for sure.
um, Johnny's definitely responsible out of the two of us. I can't contain like just dry humor and bad jokes at a bad time, and he can. So, this is a really just a fun question. This is right up my alley. For $5,000, would you walk into a random church at my choice and do the pastor?
Yes, 100%.
Didn't even think about it.
I
Didn't
would.
even
And I could
consider
walk out of there and it wouldn't change who I am. I'd still be my bridge building self, man. $5,000 richer.
it. Let's see. Let's see. As far as your hosting skills go, if you were on a game, would you be play-by-play guy or commentator?
Oh, me and my brother and I, we talk about this all the time. I'd probably be the play-by-play guy.
I love it. Book or movie?
Book.
And then last question, other than your own, your favorite. podcast that's on the play the first thing when you wake up Monday morning?
Oh, I go through a mixed bag, man. Craig Groeschel's leadership podcast is
Mm,
great. Um, Big Huberman Lab guy. I love
mm.
kind of connecting dots between science and freedom and my faith and things like that. So he does a good job with that. Yeah, I'll stick with those two.
A quick thought for the people listening. I was formerly a science teacher, Tate. I just want
Ah,
people to think about this, okay? If evolution is random, right? So if evolution exists, according to atheists, and there's hundreds of millions of species, there's hundreds of millions of odds of things happening. Why did only one species have a consciousness? I'll just let you think about that if you're listening. The odds of that can't really happen. So Tate, let me let me on your way out have you plug anything and everything for the people listening.
oh man, I'm not even gonna plug the Freedom Lab. I'm just gonna plug freedom, man. I don't think there's anyone on earth who would say, I mean, whatever religion or group or thing you subscribe to, I think if I asked anybody, I said, hey, would you rather live in bondage or in freedom? Everybody wants to live in freedom. So that's one of my favorite things about some of the people we've worked with is it's not tied to Christianity. And candidly, dude, like Christians are actually some of the hardest people to work with because we think we know it all. Um,
Mm.
so I would say lean into what you're afraid of. What are you afraid of? And what lie do you believe about yourself? That's probably a good start for figuring out where your path to freedom is.
Dude, this was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and
Same.
I started processing some stuff talking to you that I'll surely process throughout the week, which is super good. If you're listening, check out their stuff, the Freedom Lab. They're on most socials. They have a website. It is really good, man. It's really good to think about what's holding us back and how we can find the most out of what we were designed to be. I think that's a really powerful statement. Tate, thank you so much for joining. I can't wait to have Cam on. I'm super excited about it. It should be a blast.
He's the best. Hunter, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
I'll see you guys next week.
Okay.